Joining us now here in studio with more details of the raid is Vice President Mike Pence. Good morning to you, Mr. Vice President.
Morning, Margaret.
You were in the Situation Room watching this as it happened.
I was.
Tell me about the decision behind that. When was it made? Who made it?
Well, first let me just say this is a great day for America. Al-Baghdadi, the most wanted man in the world, is dead. And it's a tribute to the courage of our armed forces, special forces that executed the raid on the compound last night, but it's also a tribute to the decisiveness of President Donald Trump. We first received information early in the week about the possibility of his location.
This was CIA?
It was through our intelligence agencies that the president rightly commended today. Through a combination of intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, we believe we knew where he would be. And by Thursday afternoon, the president and I were informed that there was a high probability he would be at the compound in Idlib province. The president immediately directed our commanders to develop military options. Those were presented to the president at the White House on Friday morning, but it was Saturday morning that we received the actionable intelligence that allowed the decision that the president had made to move forward to happen. And it was incredible to be in the Situation Room and to see this unfold in real time as our special forces were on the ground, to see their professionalism over a period of 2 hours. But America and the world are safer today with the leader of ISIS dead.
According to U.S. intelligence, though, ISIS has about 8 branches. It had that battleground. It's lost in Iraq and Syria, but it has, as you know, a significant force in Afghanistan and inspiration all around the world. So what impact will taking out Baghdadi have on the rest of those tentacles?
Well, as the president said today, what the United States of America demonstrated last night is that this president, this country will be unrelenting in our fight against ISIS or any terrorist organization that threatens this country.
But what does that mean for the drawdown of U.S. forces from Syria? Does that mean that Iraq has agreed to now host the majority of the presence being pulled out from Syria?
Well, we have a military presence in Iraq. We have, as the president's made clear, an ongoing military presence in parts of Syria. But to be clear, that the president looked at the deployment of American forces in between traditionally Kurdish Syria and the Turkish border, and essentially believed that that was not the right place for our forces to be. American forces went into Syria, worked with our Syrian Kurdish allies to destroy the ISIS caliphate. The last inch of territory of the ISIS caliphate was captured in March. And the president looked at the circumstances where we had American forces essentially providing a safe zone patrol on the Turkish border. That was not the mission.
So
and I have to tell you, as the father of a United States Marine, I couldn't be more grateful that we have a commander-in-chief that is always asking about whether or not American forces have to be in harm's way.
So
and if they're not on the mission, they weren't on the mission. ISIS, the caliphate, had been destroyed. So the president said, we'll bring them home. But last night, the president of the United States proved to the world that our fight against ISIS is unrelenting. And by killing the leader of ISIS, the active operational leader of ISIS, who it was reported just 2 weeks ago was giving orders to ISIS fighters in Syria, we believe we'll have a measurable impact on the effectiveness of that terrorist organization. But we're not going to let up. We're not going to stop the fight. And at the same time, we're going to continue to work with our allies to establish that safe zone between Kurdish Syria and Turkey that the president had myself and Secretary of State Pompeo negotiate in Ankara just a week ago.
But do I understand what you're saying is that the number of U.S. troops remaining in Syria is still being determined? You haven't locked in at a number yet?
Well, we have troops at Tanif, and then also the president's made it clear that we're going to have forces to secure the oil fields in northern Syria in order to then create a collaborative relationship on that basis
more than 200, roughly,
with our Kurdish Syrian allies. I mean, look, this operation last night, though, was a real testament to the relationships that we forged with Syrian Democratic Forces, who I can't detail, but played a role in this in terms of information that we were provided. Turkey's cooperation during the assault last night was acknowledged today by the president. Yes,
okay.
Fully cooperating with the deployment of special forces, but really all the credit goes here to the decisiveness of this commander-in-chief and to the courage and professionalism of the special forces of the United States. We were literally watching, Margaret, in real time as those helicopters set down, as they assaulted the compound, and we heard those words that al-Baghdadi had been killed, and I knew from that moment America was safer as a result.
Mr. Vice President, I also want to ask you while you're here, you have been clear in saying there was no pressure put on Ukraine, no quid pro quo as it pertains to what is now being looked at as grounds for potential impeachment of the president. But we have had at least 4 U.S. officials under oath say that they had knowledge of a deal being offered that made military aid and a meeting with the president contingent on opening an investigation that relates to the company Joe Biden's son served on the board of. Are they all lying?
Well, I can only tell you what I know. And what I know is that the transcript of the president's call with President Zelensky shows that there was no quid pro quo. He did nothing wrong.
But were you aware of that deal that they are giving details of and sworn under oath
in all of my
existed?
interactions with President Zelensky, we focused entirely on President Zelensky's agenda to bring about reforms to end corruption in Ukraine and to bring together the European community to provide greater support for Ukraine. President Zelensky said there was no pressure. We had a good meeting when the president had to cancel to stay home for a hurricane, and I met President Zelensky. The aid was released after that meeting, and
but did you have knowledge of the deal that these U.S. officials have described under oath?
What I can tell you is all of my interaction on this issue with the President of the United States and President Zelensky focused entirely on 3 things. Number 1, the United States of America's support for Ukraine following the Russian invasion of Crimea and the war that Russia's been fomenting there. We actually, this administration, different from the last one, have provided lethal weapons for Ukraine,
and we've stood with them. That conflict never came up in the phone call.
Margaret, we've stood with them.
Did you have knowledge of what they're describing or no?
We stood with them to restore their sovereignty and territorial integrity. Number 2, President Zelensky was elected in a historic landslide and won parliamentary elections on an agenda to end corruption in Ukraine. And we very much wanted to understand the progress he was making on that. And thirdly, President Trump believed that it was time for the European community to step up. Those are the issues we made clear to President Zelensky and Ukraine. I think as the facts continue to come out, the American people again will see there that in the president's transcript, my interactions, there was no quid pro quo, there was no pressure. It was entirely focused on issues
I
and
haven't
importance
gotten
to
a
the
clear
American
answer
people.
from you on that, though, sir. I do have to leave the interview there, but are you saying you did not ever hear of such a deal? Is that what I understand you're describing?
I'm telling you that all of my interactions with the president, all of my conversation with President Zelensky, were entirely focused on issues of importance to the American people, ending corruption, enlisting more European support, and supporting Ukraine in a way that would restore its territorial integrity and stand by Ukraine for its sovereignty.
All right. Mr. Vice President, thank you very much.